Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Hello, I'm Paula Scatoloni. Welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. This is the beginning of starting to pick up the solo episodes, so I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'd like to start by taking a few moments to let you collect yourself, as I always do, welcoming you into this space and inviting you to slow down and come into this moment. Part of what I do is offer that perspective that we are in a world that goes really fast moving, and when we're bouncing around from one thing to another, it doesn't really give us time to ingest what is being offered in the moment. So I'm going to use this opportunity to invite you to practice moving from fifth gear into first, taking time to feel the seat underneath you and your feet underneath you, and kind of settle back in the chair or the couch or the car seat. And this idea of coming into relationship with what's behind you and underneath you. Like landing. And as you do that, I'm going to offer you some things to think about today. Some of those things might have a place to land already, and some might find a home later. So today, I'd like to kick things off by talking about music in general. One of the primary things I do in my programs and in this space is broadening our perspective of what we think of as therapeutic. There are many, many people who use music therapeutically, some professionally, who are trained in that venue, and some who are musicians themselves, and some of us who have just always had an affinity to music and sound. And it's just a natural thing in our lives that we've used to help us along the way, different time periods, whether those are soundscapes or music with lyrics, which it's just had a therapeutic role. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that today and some of the different ways I'm thinking about music lately. So if you are a person who has used music therapeutically, you might be thinking about the times in your life where there's been a particular song that has really captured the essence of, where you're at emotionally. Often I think that sometimes the songs can say things and help us tap into emotions that we might not have the words to tap into or the pathway to sitting with emotions. And music has a way of supporting us, very similar to movies, right? Where it helps us through the back door to drop into our human experience, being with our emotions, through something that's being given to us from someone else, right? They've put this piece of art together. They have been the muse for the universe. And this piece of music has come through them, and it's now being offered to us. And so in many ways, the musician is a channel for Source in bringing forward something that comes from the formless and puts it into form, right? And so in that way, we can deepen and think about our relationship to particular songs and what they may invite us into. Maybe that is to bring us in and shift an emotional state. So they offer us the opposite, right, of what we may feel in a given moment. Or they may bring us into more connectivity with a certain emotion that we're already feeling. Or sometimes songs just allow a space of neutrality, a holding space, so we can get in touch with ourselves. Either way, when we hold this perspective about music, it is actually a similar perspective that I learned about with Rachel when I was teaching with her in her training in osteopathic medicine, and the different ways that we can influence change in the body. One of those ways is to go against and create the opposite feeling, and bring in the opposite state in the body. Another is to go with the flow of what is presently there. And the third way is to hold neutrality. And I do think body-based therapies in general offer us this. And so I wonder, can we bring the same perspective into our relationship with music and how we use sound therapeutically? So this opens the door for you to be curious about why you're playing a particular song at a given time. To bring in some curiosity about how, if you're feeling a certain way, music can come in to support you. Maybe you're like me and you might pose a question or just, be open in general, and you may hear song lyrics that pop into your head. And what I've learned to do with that is I will go ahead and put the song on so I can listen to it in its full version and hear what messages might be coming through that song to me. Maybe it's a memory that I get taken into. Maybe there's a message in the words themselves. But I've come to understand that that's a pathway for me of communication. And you may have that pathway already open. And the invitation is to start thinking about how you receive messages and how you engage with the formless world, and that this might be a pathway for you. Another thing that I'd like to invite you to do is when you're listening to music, to start to pay attention to those three principles that I brought up. Is the music supporting you in deepening into a state that you already are feeling? Is it bringing you into the opposite state, emotional or physiological state? Or is it simply holding this place of neutrality for you? And it begins to ask us, I think those questions ask us, how can we use music more intentionally and more therapeutically? And it is right at our fingertips, right? Something that's always there. So in this day and age, when we are in a given day being invited into states of fight or flight, or, what I might call states of contraction or dysregulation, we have this tool that is there all the time if we consider it and think about it as medicine, as something that's therapeutic. And as we're listening, we can broaden our perspective of what might be happening with the music. I, because of the work I do with the mind-body, like to turn people towards some of the videos, and I'll put one or two here, of semantics, and the idea that there is cellular restructuring occurring when we're listening to sound. And how can we pay more attention and be more intentional about that when we're ingesting sound? And I like to think of sound and music, in whatever form it comes in, like vitamins. And if we were taking vitamins, if we were ingesting it, we would put ourselves into a receptive state and not just absentmindedly be putting that vitamin in our body. We may be feeling and thinking, oh, I'm doing this, for my betterment. I'm doing this to create more peace in my body. I am doing this for my health. So we come into more intentionality with it. And when we're listening, even amplify that intentionality. And if you want to go really far with it, you can say, how do I support my cells in taking in this medication? And for many of the private sessions I lead, we're working with unprocessed emotions from childhood and other periods of time. And the songs that we use are generally songs that would promote healing and shifts in how you feel about yourself. So I spend a lot of time inviting people to hear the words as if they were being sung to that part that most needs to hear it. And you can do that too on your own, right? If you're hearing a phrase or words or message in a song, what part of me needs to hear this most? So, in essence, I feel like we are inviting ourselves into a deeper relationship and understanding of the value of music beyond the obvious, right? We're taking it a few steps further. And we're inviting ourselves to consider it as a relationship, something we have a relationship with. And in this way, then, it is a process that invites more unity and connection between us, because music is a shared universal language that we all take part in. And when you put people together from different places and you bring them together with music, there is a unifying experience that can happen with it. So there's so much potential right now for music to be a unifying force in the world. So for today, we'll leave you with one question to think about. I'll leave you with one question. If you think about a song from your teenage years, perhaps, that really captured a time in your life when you were struggling, and what was it about that song that helped you to feel more connected to yourself, or maybe validated your pain, or felt like a companion at that time? And if you're really bold and you want to, I invite you to go and play that piece for yourself today as a therapeutic tool, and to be with that younger version of yourself today, and to sit next to that part of you as you listen to the song. Maybe, if you decide, if you're the type of person that likes to journal, you can always journal after, or if you're not, you can decide if you want to move on with your day. But that's my little therapeutic tip that I'll leave with you, and we'll continue this discussion and see where we end up next time in understanding and being with the medicine of sound.